In conflict, we can become so focused on the bad and we forget all the good. And the result has become a culture filled with throwaway and disposable marriages. And growth in relationship comes through sticking it out and working through hard seasons. In fact, if you'll let it, conflict will help you recall what is about each other that you love and lead you to deeper levels of intimacy. Here's some breaking news. Your marriage is made up of someone like you. Imperfect, infallible, fallible, flawed, basically two extremely imperfect individuals that are trying to do life together with different personalities, different opinions, different tastes, different hormones, different backgrounds, different expectations, different temperaments, different dreams, goals, and needs, and throw them together. It's not always the Instagram picture of happily ever after. Something's got to give. Now, I don't know about your home, but I know in mine, we have a collection of the dumbest things that we argue about. Do you have any of those? And they can go from something small to something huge like that. For instance, in our house, about 7 years ago, we bought a new refrigerator that is apparently stainless steel. I just always called it silver, but apparently it's a special type of metal that is really good at collecting fingerprints. And so anytime somebody opens the refrigerator the wrong way, it leaves fingerprints everywhere. And so for years, my wife would say to me, "Who keeps leaving fingerprints?" And I said, "Well, it's got to be the kids." And so that resulted in my wife bringing myself and the kids into the kitchen and explaining how to remove fingerprints and how to open it without leaving fingerprints. I mean, it was like an episode of CSI, right? We're breaking down all this. She's dusting to try to figure out whose they are, and I would just join in to be the supportive husband. Girls, you can't be leaving fingerprints on mom's fridge like this. This is awful. Well, then the girls left home. And guess what? The fingerprints remained, right? And so now it's only a meeting of two people in the kitchen as my wife looks at me and says, "Who's leaving all these fingerprints?" And I said, "It's got to be the kids." She said, "The kids don't live here anymore." Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe we had a small group over here the other night. Maybe it came from them. And then it gets into he said and she said, and you're just like your mom, and it never ends well, right? It doesn't end well. And it's just something stupid that gets into something huge. And I know you've got something like that too. Just yesterday, I stopped by Taco Casa for a little bit of the Lord's lunch there, and it was awesome as always. And as I ordered and I walked over to that little table, where they got the napkins and the straws and the forks and everything, and I'm getting that, and there's an elderly gentleman standing next to me, and we get to talking, and he makes mention that he's been married for 60 years. I said, "Well, congratulations. That's phenomenal." I said, "You got any advice for me?" And he said, "Yeah, the key to happy marriage is the ability to follow instructions." I said, "I'm learning that with a refrigerator right now. I just can't do it. I can't do it." And maybe that's kind of where you are right now. You've got all this conflict, and you can't figure out how to get rid of it. So you think the answer is, we're not going to fight anymore. We're not going to talk about it. But that's not the issue. The issue is how you deal with the conflict. Take a look at this great quote by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend in their book, Rescue Your Love Life. It says, "A fight is a vigorous way to solve the problem of two people disagreeing while wanting to remain connected." And that's the key. The goal is not about winning. It's not about proving who's right. It's not about moving towards the winner's circle. It's about moving towards a deeper connection with each other. That's what we're going to read about today in our song. In fact, we've watched as Solomon and Beloved have moved through the courtship phase, the dating phase, the texting each other, and now they're married, and we walked through the honeymoon stage last week. Can we give a shout out to Brian Morozic right there for leading us through that message? It was incredible. Many of you said you're a chicken to give him that, and you're exactly right. So anyway, he crushed it. But today we're going to move to a next level with their relationship. And we don't know how much time has passed between the bliss-filled honeymoon and now this moment, but they're about to have an argument. They're about to not see things eye to eye, which is going to lead to somebody having to sleep on the couch, basically. Here's our setting. We start off in Song of Songs, chapter 5, verse 2, and this is Beloved speaking. Now let me just say this before we get started. Back then, it was very, very common for, in a marriage, especially in wealthy relationships, to have two sleeping chambers. And so she is in hers, and this is what she says. I slept, but my heart was awake. Anybody know that feeling? You're restless, you're in and out of sleep, you're not really quite awake, you're not really quite asleep, you're just kind of, maybe for you it's waiting till the kids come home or waiting till your spouse comes home, whatever it is. And then she says this, listen, my lover is knocking. And this is what he says. Open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my flawless one. My head is drenched with dew, my hair with the dampness of the night. Now, here's her situation. She is tucked in. She has taken a long bath. She's taken her makeup off. She's gotten her pillow just right. She's turned the white noise on her phone. And Solomon shows up late and knocks on her door. His hair is soaked with sweat to describe the fact that he has been working all day, even up into the evening hours. And it seems as if he has been at work all day thinking about her. Kind of like the old country song, daydreams about night things. And while she has been at home all day thinking about him, just in a different way, like, why hasn't he called yet? Why hasn't he let me know he's going to be late? And this is what she says. I have taken off my robe. Must I put it on again? I have washed my feet. Must I soil them again? The literal Hebrew translation here is, oh, are you kidding me? I've been with the kids all day, driving them to soccer practice and dance lessons. I fixed you a plate, big boy. It's in the fridge. Throw it in the microwave. I will see you in the morning. In other words, I don't care what you want. I don't care how bad your day was. I don't care what your needs are. I'm feeling a little taken for granted right now and a little ticked off. So in your dreams, Romeo. I feel like it's gotten better since week 1, don't you think? I'm learning. And what's interesting about this is there's basically 8 top reasons why most couples bicker. See if you can resonate with any of these. Number 1 is communication. Number 2 is finances. Number 3 is sex. Number 4 is kids. Number 5 is work. Number 6 is in-laws. Number 7 is illness. And number 8, the remote control. These are the big ones, right? And in this situation, notice how it starts off with one and then it gets to another and then to another. It starts off with the sex issue that turned to a work issue, then turned to a communication issue. And so this is what often happens in an argument. We start off with something insignificant, like fingerprints on the fridge, and it turns into multiple things that just kind of add on and develop the momentum here. And I don't know, but maybe he starts thinking, this is absolutely unbelievable. Are you kidding me? Listen, my working late is providing you with a pretty cushy life, farm girl. Remember, I rescued you from the wheat fields. I'm the only reason that you've got that plush king-size bed in there. I mean, you got that soaking tub, and that's not even for like the cold plunge. You got it all right there. I'm out there working hard, running the kingdom. Everything is all about making money to make you happy, and you won't even unlock the door? This is unbelievable. Isn't this what we do so often? We hear one thing, we translate it one way, and then we're off and running. And text, oh my goodness, it just makes it even worse. Especially if there's some kind of typo or some kind of a autocorrect or whatever. And if you all caps anything, man, you put them on blast, it's over with right there, right? I'm learning in my life, I am trying to learn how to underreact rather than overreact. Someone said it this way, that patience is the ability to count down before you blast off. Maybe that's what you need to hear today. Take a moment, cool down. Think about what they might have meant. Think about it in the most positive way. Think about what might be really happening. Anger is always the second emotion. Maybe what's behind that is fatigue or fear or nervousness or some kind of pain. And in this moment, Solomon chooses to underreact, and he actually leaves a little gift in the opening of the door there. He knocks, she denies, she keeps the door locked. Look at verse 4 through 6. My lover thrust his hand through the latch opening. My heart began to pound for him. In other words, she hears the knocking again, and she realizes he hasn't just burst in. So her heart begins to pound for him again. I arose to open for my lover. My hands dripped with myrrh. My fingers with flowing myrrh on the handles of the lock. I opened for my lover, but my lover had left. He was gone. My heart sank at his departure. When beloved realizes that he hasn't opened the door, he hasn't forced his way in, she throws back the covers, she gets out of bed, puts on the robe, runs to the door, only to find that he's left the equivalent of a dozen roses, myrrh. He had come to romance her, and she had denied him the opportunity, is now ridden with guilt. That line, my heart sank, can literally be translated, I nearly died. And she wants to talk this out. She wants to apologize. She wants to take the initiative to make this right. She's wise enough to know you don't let the sun go down on conflict. You don't give anger a chance to turn into resentment. And so this is what we read next. I looked for him. I opened the door, I ran out, I looked for him, I did not find him. I called for him, but he didn't answer. Notice what she does here. She doesn't go back in and get on social media and say, you won't believe what just happened to me. This no good so-and-so, she didn't say any of that. She didn't scroll through social media about how everybody else's marriage is better than hers. She simply went out to find him. I'm going to make this right. I looked for him. I called him. And then she uses this very interesting phrase, which is going to give us this very almost graphic imagery. I want to break down for you. In verse 7, she's looking for him the way she did when they were engaged, as she does the watchmen do their job. Look at this in verse 7. The watchmen found me as they made their rounds in the city. They beat me, they bruised me, they took away my cloak, those watchmen of the walls. That sounds pretty horrific. But what's really happening here is this is a metaphor for the Spirit of God convicting her. The watchman is basically the Spirit of God that taps you on the shoulder and says, I think you messed that one up there. I think you want a do-over on that one. Now, we use a word for that we simply call guilt. Now, my mentor, a pastor by the name of Mike Breaux, he taught me this, and that guilt can be seen from two different perspectives, God's and Satan's. And look how this breaks down. Guilt from Satan's perspective is grief united in lifelong torment. He wants your actions and your past to beat you up to the point where you are paralyzed by it. But then look at guilt from God's perspective. It's God's unique, intentional, loving treatment. He will use guilt as like a warning light on your dashboard that blinks, check engine soon. The Holy Spirit is basically tapping her on the shoulder and convicting her. Not saying that she's a failure, not saying she can't be redeemed, not saying this marriage can't be redeemed, but rather, I think you want to do that differently, and let me help. And so she searches out her friends. We've been talking through this entire series about how you need some other people in your life that help you maintain your covenants you've made with your spouse. Here's what it says. Make this promise, O women of Jerusalem. If you find my lover, tell him I am weak with love. Now, I know too many people that talk about way too much about their spouse to other people, like trying to get people on their side. And if when you have an argument, you immediately get on social media and rant about it, or you call up mom and let her know all about it, guess what? You're going to get over it, and they'll never forget it. You got to be willing to deal with that issue. And so when she does get her friends involved, here's all she asks them to do. She just says, if you see him, tell him I'm looking for him. And I love him so much. She's not trying to get people to agree with her and say, you got to leave that man, you could do so much better than him. She just says, help me find him. And so this is what her friends do. These are good friends. And they remind her of how great he is. How is your beloved better than others? Most beautiful of women. How is your beloved better than others? That you charge us so. In other words, remember what made you fall in love with him in the first place. Remember and remind yourself how amazing and how great he is. This is just a little bump in the road. This won't last forever. This is an isolated incident. Don't forget all the great and wonderful things about him. And so she doesn't. She begins to list over the next 5 verses, describing everything she loves about him, his character, his body, his charm, his wisdom, his eyes, his soul, his strength, the sweet way he talks to her, the safety and security she feels when she's with him, the foundational values he stands upon. And then she concludes in verse 16, you know what? That is my lover. O daughters of Jerusalem. Yep, he's my best friend. You see, in conflict, we can become so focused on the bad and we forget all the good. And the result has become a culture filled with throwaway and disposable marriages. And growth in relationship comes through sticking it out and working through hard seasons. In fact, if you'll let it, conflict will help you recall what is about each other that you love and lead you to deeper levels of intimacy.